Okay, in this series of videos we are going to look at project quality management and project kickoff. So this represents the end of the planning phase of project management just before we get into project execution. Basically, the idea of project quality management is that we want to make sure that the deliverables that are a result of our project are of adequate quality. They satisfy the customer needs. So we need to, of course, understand what those needs are. We need to understand success criteria. And we have to have a way of measuring our deliverables up against those criteria to determine is what we're doing of a quality level that's acceptable, and what can we do to improve the quality or maintain the quality. So this needs to be integrated with other aspects of project management. The textbook mentions a few particular individuals who made significant contributions to the development of quality management. The first is W. Edwards Deming. Some of his main points are understanding variation. So in a manufacturing environment, for instance, your manufactured items are going to have a certain amount of variation associated with them. And you as the project manager need to understand what causes variation and try to limit it as much as possible. Deming also pointed out how companies are like systems, and just like in any system, there are cause and effect relationships that need to be understood in order to improve quality. Managers need to understand the system, understand their company, and that helps them to predict future outcomes. They need to understand the people who work for the company. They need to understand their psychology and what motivates them. And so what Deming is best known for is this profound knowledge system. The Deming's profound knowledge system consists of these four parts. First one being systems. So again, understanding that within a system, every part of the system affects other parts. So there's lots of cause and effect relationships that can both improve quality, and if they're not managed, or if one thing is not performing well, it can have a negative effect on others. So the goal here is to limit variation. So you want to have a consistent result, and there are different types of causes of variation, common and special causes, and managers need to understand the difference between them and reduce both of them. Knowledge is the third part of the profound knowledge system. So understanding the relationships, understanding the organization, understanding the system will allow people to better improve it. And then fourth and last is the psychology of the individuals within the system, understanding what motivates them to do well and perform at their best. The second quality guru listed in the book is Joseph Juran. He's known for his quality trilogy, and this is the basis for the Project Management Institute's quality planning, control, and assurance. And so the three parts of Juran's quality trilogy are quality planning, quality control, and quality improvement. So the part of quality planning is understanding customers' needs and developing methods to satisfy those needs. Quality control establishes measuring systems to measure the quality and performance standards. And then quality improvement. You want to be able to improve the quality and maintain high levels of quality. So basically, you need to understand what you want to do, You need to establish a way of measuring, are you doing it well? And then you need to be constantly working at improving how well you do it. And the book goes on to list several others. I won't go through all of these. I will point out the one of these that I'm most familiar with is Clifton. There's a Clifton Strength Finder that I think we may have talked about earlier in the semester. It's one of those types of tests you can take to determine what your individual strengths are. Excuse me. And that would play into Deming's psychology part, understanding your team and what they do well and playing to their strengths. So a lot of these quality pioneers, as the book calls them, a lot of their ideas do sort of overlap and are interchangeable. The idea of TQM, or total quality management, was developed by Malcolm Baldrige, and basically it came about in the 1980s when he realized that merely inspecting deliverables was not the best way of defining quality. And so he came up with this TQM, total quality management concept to look at processes more holistically. So looking at things like leadership, customer focus, learning from past experiences, partnering with others, innovating new ideas, and using fact-based management. So really looking at the entire system from start to end, rather than just waiting until you get the end deliverable and inspecting it. So it's really a sort of a holistic approach to managing the quality of the deliverables. In Europe, there's an organization, ISO, the International Organization for Standardization. You may recall ISO from, we briefly mentioned it in engineering graphics. They set standardization for technical drawings, for different types of dimension styles and things like that, paper sizes. At least that's how I'm typically familiar with ISO. But it's really a very broad organization looking at a lot of different things, including quality management. ISO 9001 is a quality management standard, and that was revised in 2015, is the latest revision of this quality standard. So it sets out technical standards for documenting work processes. And so it's really an entire set of principles and documentation for how to go about measuring quality within an organization. And then we have Lean Six Sigma. So this comes from statistics, where you have an average, a mean average, and then you have standard deviation. When you look at a bell curve, how far away from the center of that bell curve are you to either end? And so that's that standard deviation in mathematics and statistics is represented by sigma. And so that's where the sigma comes from in Six Sigma. It's a quality management process or methodology. It is based on a DMAIC plan, and let's move on to the next slide here. I've got a diagram here. DMAIC stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And so you have to define the problem or define the success criteria. You need to measure to see how well you're doing, analyze those results, look for ways to improve them, and control them. So you want to be able to whatever it is you're doing as a company, as an organization, as a project manager, you want to improve it and then maintain that level of improvement. So control it. And this cycle just continually repeats itself. Six Sigma is used by a lot of major organizations to be constantly monitoring and improving their levels of quality. So when we define quality, we need to consider both the final product as well as its value. So there is a bit of a balancing act that has to be done. You can't, you could pour more and more resources into a project in order to improve its quality, but at some point, those benefits are going to diminish relative to the resources being put into it. So you want to find the right balance of benefit to cost. Within the manufacturing field, quality has a lot to do with consistency, providing the same product, the same deliverable consistently over and over again. And ultimately, quality is determined by the customer. You're wanting to satisfy the customer's needs and expectations. Four contemporary core project quality concepts. So we'll look at these in more detail throughout this entire chapter. But these are essentially four areas in which we can measure and determine quality. So the first one is stakeholder satisfaction. In any project, you have a lot of stakeholders, external, internal. They all have different points of view. They might all have something different that is most important to them. And you want to identify them, you want to organize them, you want their feedback, you want their input, and they can help establish what the quality standards should be. And as a project manager, then you want to manage your resources in such a way that you meet the needs of the most important stakeholders, and if possible, satisfy all stakeholders. But oftentimes, that's going to be a bit difficult. So, making trade-offs, making decisions on how you can best use your resources to meet the stakeholder needs is part of a quality goal. And it seems I got a bit ahead of myself. What I mentioned in the previous slide is essentially summarized here. You need to, as the project manager, identify all the stakeholders, prioritize them, understand what their needs are, develop standards to meet these requirements. And like I said, the old expression is you can't make all the people happy all the time. The idea here is to make as many of the people happy as you can with your given resources.